Hello and welcome into Wild Tales. I'm your host, Mike Bona, and it's good to be back. I took a little break, but I'm back, and I got some great people coming up to talk to, including today's guest. But before I get to that, let me tell you where I was. I took a little trip to Yosemite National Park, one of my favorite places on the whole planet. It is absolutely gorgeous. I cannot recommend it enough. If you have not been, go. That's all I got to say. You will not be disappointed. Great hiking, beautiful scenery, amazing wildlife. Did not see any bears. That was unfortunate. I love seeing a bear in the wild. That's always a goal. Every time I go to Yosemite, I hope to see a bear, from a safe distance. They're a little intimidating up close, but, I like to see a bear, across the way, across a river, say, or, about 100 yards in the distance up in a tree with a lot of safe space between me and the bear. But either way, I like seeing the bear. Did not see a bear. Did see some great wildlife. Saw plenty of deer, some squirrels, a lot of birds, turkeys. Nothing really makes me more happy than seeing a wild turkey. I don't know why, but turkeys make me smile. Always great to see a turkey in the wild. Ducks, geese, some great wildlife. It's just one of my favorite places to go. And it's great to relax and unwind and get some fresh air. I recommend going. If Yosemite is a little out of your way, check out one of the other national parks that the U.S. has to offer. There's beautiful, amazing parks all over the country with amazing scenery and something to check out. So I recommend it. But enough about my trip. Let's get into this episode. Today, I have the fortune of talking to Christian Flores. You can find him online at Crikey is Christian. He is a wildlife and paleo educator covering species from Earth's past and present. His social media content includes conservation efforts, what the average person can do to help this planet, and also an animal welfare specialist. Currently, he's working with reptiles. So he has a vast knowledge of a wide variety of animals. He's also the lead writer and zoological consultant for the upcoming art book, Project Paleo Zoo. You can check that out at Project Paleo Zoo on Instagram, which depicts a modern zoo in the care of, a modern zoo with the care and attention for animal welfare for species like Tyrannosaurus Rex and more. And you can follow their Instagram page for updates and information on how you can get your hands on that book. We had a great chat, covered a lot of subjects and topics, so I will get into it now. Please enjoy my chat with Christian Flores.
I go to the LA Zoo relatively often-ish, but the one, actually it's even funny that I haven't crossed paths with you because I go to LA Zoo like maybe a few times a year, but I know Philip. Philip's a good guy.
He's a good guy. Yeah, I've seen you post from there. That's why I thought like, oh, I must have seen him at some point, right? But yeah, next time you're at the LA Zoo, shoot me a message. Say hi. I'll probably be there.
Yeah. I know the only keeper that I know there besides you is Andrea. She works with marsupials.
All right, Australia. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
she's
rocks.
Good people. All right. Well, you want to know more keepers? I know a few there.
Oh, I mean, I'm a herp guy, so I know Ian, the past curator of reptiles. He retired, so we're left.
So, all right. Well, let's roll into this. Christian Flores, thanks for coming on Wild Tales. It's great having you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be here, Mike.
Good. So, yeah, we're just talking about how we know each other because I don't know. My memory's flaky, and I'm like, have we met? But no, you heard me on All Creatures podcast, right?
Yeah, like you said before, it's the best episode, Mike Bona and Drabs. So,
yeah, all downhill from there.
Chris and Angie rock. If they're ever looking for another guest, I'd be happy to oblige.
I think I'm first in line there.
Okay.
Maybe.
Rerun.
Actually, rerun. Yeah, he's great, Chris. There on a previous episode of Wild Tales, we had a great discussion about birds and such. But your interest is you're in the animals of current and past. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So again, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Christian Flores. I go by Craig Gets Christian on my social media platforms, and I'm a wildlife educator, but I'm also a paleo educator. So I do talk about life on our planet, both past and present. And then similar to Mike, I'm also a keeper. So animal welfare specialist, whatever you want to call it. I work with herps right now, so reptiles, and yeah, it's all a good time.
So having such an extensive knowledge of animals that are no longer with us, is there an animal that if you could just pull back from the past to be able to take care of at a zoo, what would top your list?
Oh, I mean, how can I not say T-Rex? Like any childhood dream or any keeper or person's like, how is T-Rex not the top of your list? Or like a long-necked dinosaur, so.
Sure, a T-Rex, what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly, yeah.
We haven't seen any movies that show warnings of something going wrong with the T-Rex. Just remember, they don't want to be fed; they want to hunt.
Exactly.
That would be great. So, you come on Wild Tales, and I ask you to bring on some stories, a story or some stories of your tales with the wild. And what do you have for us today?
Yeah. So for me, when I really thought about this, Mike, I was thinking I tried not to put too much thought into it, but I did want to think about it. That what stories that I have that could make any contribution to this. And I think one thing that I thought about was, I guess, theme first and then stories after. And one thing as an educator, and all of us as keepers, not only do we take care of the animals, but we also do a lot of educating the public, is working around misconceptions and kind of some of the preconceived thoughts that people have about animals. And then once they finally see them, they're either very fearful or maybe they learn something new from having people like us to help out along the way. One of the very first I could think of was during the start of my career, I actually took care of kangaroos, and alongside some other species. And kangaroos, I absolutely love. Amazing animals, super unique mammals. They're just the crazier and crazier as you read and learn more about them. But a common misconception that people have about kangaroos is that the moment that they see you, they're going to kick and scratch, beat you up, and take your wallet, essentially. And people have this idea that kangaroos are vicious and mean, and they're going to, do something. And so when I was a marsupial keeper and working with kangaroos and wallabies, people would often ask, so why aren't they attacking people as soon as they come by? Because I worked in Australian walkabout. And so people then made their own assumptions. Oh, I've watched this YouTube video of someone boxing a kangaroo, or this kangaroo attacking someone's dog, or I went to Australia and they were all nice, so I assumed they were all drugged. So are these kangaroos drugged? And so I have had multiple run-ins with guests coming through, and I'm either cleaning or taking care of the animals or having like a training session with them with the guests nearby to see. And I've had guests pull me to the side and say, hey, like, I just want to ask you something very personal for a second. I was like, yeah, how can I help you? And are these kangaroos drugged? Like, how many drugs do you give them? Like, how do you keep them so calm? And it's like, well, they're not drugged, spoiler alert, but there's a lot more to them than what you just see on the internet. And so too many a time I would have kids or adults alike, again, ask, why aren't they attacking people as soon as people walk through the door? What's up with that? So again, like, people have these thoughts of what animals are like, and I just think there's so much to it that you hear from media or hear word of mouth, see on media that, that's part of it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was such a reputation that kangaroos had. But I do get that. It's also, amazing chance to get to actually, educate anyone that visits the zoo or where we work about animals. Because you get that about a lot of animals. I have people ask that about, lions. Like, are they drugged? Like, no, lions pretty much sleep for over 20 hours a day. That's what they do. This is their natural behavior. Yeah, they're sleeping. Kangaroos, they can be, dangerous, but for the most part, they just want to be, live their life and be chill. But yeah, I wouldn't want to pick a fight with them. You've seen some of those pictures of the gray kangaroos that look like freaking, they just got jacked at the gym. Yeah, they're definitely jacked in the wild. But again, it's when I would talk to guests, it's like, what do you see on this 5-minute YouTube clip or 1-minute video is only a small snippet of their entire lives. Again, they're going to be spending a lot of times grazing, a lot of times resting for part of the day, and activity is a part of their day, but not viciously fighting one another or fighting people as they hike in Australia. So it was always a fun time to kind of work with the people, because the people are the ones that are going to carry this information, then finally go off with their day, and maybe they learned something new, or maybe they thought, no, the zookeeper doesn't know what he's talking about. I saw those kangaroos fighting, so I know what's going on. Well, those are the videos that get the clicks, right? No one wants to
Yeah.
watch, kangaroo just sitting there for 5 minutes. You want action to get your views up. So that's, I think, how a lot of misconceptions get passed around. Is just people watching these videos on the internet, and you get one bad moment from a kangaroo or a wallaby on YouTube, and that's what people think that they are all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Working with wallabies, kangaroos, all of Australia, is that kind of what you've been doing for the past few years? Or you have a new interest now, or?
Yeah, so I first started working with macropods and marsupials, so kangaroos and wallabies first. I worked with emu. Those are also some animals that have plenty of misconceptions that a lot of people think they're gonna spit on you. I have no idea where that came from. So I've had guests
Really?
come by during this when I was part of this part of my programming, and they would ask, when's the emu going to spit on someone? Or I don't want to get too close because they're going to spit on you. And I have no idea how this started, but people have, or at least some people have, this misconception that emus and ostriches spit at people. So I have no idea where that originated from, but it's these sort of wives' tales, or things that just come up out of nowhere. And for animals you wouldn't even expect, like an emu. So I worked with emu, worked with kangaroos, worked with red panda for a little bit, capybara. Everyone loves capybaras, especially right now on the internet. Yeah. And then after that, I moved into wildlife rehab for a bit. So anything from a pelican sick on the beach to an owl hurt its wing, getting them healed up and going back out in the wild. And now I'm with reptiles. So I speak about misconceptions, all the misconceptions that come with reptiles, whether that they're heartless or don't have emotions or just completely unintelligent and not able to understand the world around them besides food and warmth. But there's a lot more to them. And one story I guess I'll add in that's a little bit longer is that I actually wasn't working this day. I was visiting the San Diego Zoo with some friends of mine, very close friends, and we were going through the reptile house of San Diego Zoo, which is absolutely beautiful, great time to go. And we're going around, we're going through every habitat and seeing each species that's nearby, king cobra, Bolin's python, lizards, et cetera, et cetera. And finally, we stop at a point where we're looking at an Ethiopian mountain viper. It's an African viper species that I've never worked with, but they're very pretty, greenish color. And my friends had stopped by and they said, "What is this?" And I started talking about it a little bit. They're ambush animals, usually kind of sit in one spot. They're not really actively trying to hunt or actively try to even hurt people. But this almost movie-like moment, a young kid heard me talking to my friends and telling facts about this snake and the different animals here. And he actually joined in with our group with his parents trailing behind him. And the kid said, "Excuse me, sir, can I talk to you? Or can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yeah, how can I help you?" Again, not in uniform, not working. I did not work at San Diego Zoo, but this kid came up to me because he heard me talking to my friends. And he said, do snakes want to hurt people? And
that's
again,
great.
Yeah, what is this kid's coming from? What does he maybe see on YouTube, or what does he hear from his parents? Or what's the perception that he's gotten from his world around him to want to ask a question, do snakes want to hurt people? And so I've actually worked with kids for quite a few years in youth programming and educational programming. And so it sounds like such a cliche movie moment, but I was talking to this kid. I got down to his level. He was a 7-year-old kid. And I tell him, no, snakes don't want to hurt people. You can look at him right now. And I'm pointing at the habitat with this Ethiopian mountain viper. You can look at him right now. He's not hissing. Doesn't have his mouth open. He's just kind of hanging out and staying nice and warm. And the parents, of course, I was an animal kid. I know how my parents were when I was asking all these questions. And so I can see them behind the kid, kind of gesturing, I'm sorry. He's just like this. And for me, I'm it's okay. It's totally fine. I love this. I'm happy to help. And I would tell him, kind of help out again, snakes don't want to hurt people. He asked a few more questions, what is this snake? And I told more. And then the parents kind of both said thank you, and they walked their way. And then my friends all had the biggest smile on their faces on me. It's even when you're not working, you still have to go into the education with people. And again, all of us who are zookeepers or people who work in science education, it doesn't matter whether in uniform or not, you're going to help people and you're going to want to get involved because that's what we do. And that's just who we are. So
Right. It's like a reflex, you know, it doesn't matter if you're at your zoo or another zoo or out in the wild. It's like, that's what we do is we teach, we educate, we get into it. Especially if you can, you know, convert some, people on their misconceptions or some, sadly enough, some animals get villainized like in the media or just by reputation, snakes, sharks, hyenas, whatever. And it's just being able to convince someone like, no, these animals aren't dangerous. They kind of want to be more left alone than anything. They don't want you bothering them. They don't want to bother you. It's just when you kind of get in their space that you can, cause trouble. But like, out in the LA area, it's getting into summer, we got rattlesnakes everywhere. We actually found one at the zoo the other day. It was just kind of someone just spotted it, like just kind of curled up like in a bush there. Probably 100 people walked by it without even knowing. They're probably like within 3 feet of the snake, and he's just chilling. Like they don't want to be bothered.
Yeah. Can you imagine the amount of hikers and people who are going through California or wherever part of the world, and they're passing by snakes and lizards or whatever animal, like going to the beach and surfing or just hanging out in the sand, and there could very well be sharks in the water. And for a lot of people, that's a big red flag. People don't want to be in the water because of this fear of sharks. But
thanks,
sharks,
Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it's a great film, but it's had its downs. But again, people have this fear, this idea. We fear what we don't understand. And so we are land-based animals. So going out to surf and go on the water, that's something that's scary because you're out of your element. You're seeing a snake or a lizard that isn't furred or skinned like us. It's snakes don't blink. And so that also kind of gives people like a certain paralysis of like, oh, this thing is so unlike a human. And that's why we love the cute and cuddly wallabies, capybaras and stuff like that. So, but, all these animals have their place in the ecosystem. And even if, a lot of times I feel like too, we have to talk about, it's an uphill battle with some of these species, right? Because you have to kind of tell people that snakes are good for the environment for different things, or snakes are good for pharmaceutical research because their venoms are doing medications that help us today. But even if that was all thrown out the window, these living things still deserve a place on the planet. You can't deny that, or I feel like we shouldn't deny them of that. I recently had just did a venomous snake training course with an organization called Save the Snakes, great org. But again, when it comes to working with venomous snakes, there is an aspect of you may be working around land development or people who are fearful of snakes and trying to navigate how you coexist with a species that people inherently don't really like or have a hard time gaining appreciation for. And so this actually is the year of the snake 2025, ironically enough. And so I felt like a snake story would be pretty good as a reptile keeper. But yeah, I mean, sharks and more are all vilified so much. So
yeah, hyenas too. Thanks, Disney. It's like I blame all these movies that I love, but I'm like, come on. I guess every movie you got to have a villain, and some of these animals, they get given that reputation and they maintain it throughout the years. So it's kind of an uphill battle we have to kind of fight through to convince people that no, these animals are fine. Capybara is probably just as dangerous as a kangaroo, but you're not afraid of them.
Yeah, those teeth are pretty gnarly.
Yes, I do love a good capybara. I wish I got. We don't have them at our zoo, but I would love to take care of them. I've seen them up at Santa Barbara. I went for a visit a few years ago. And,
I guess I would kind of want to ask you: have you ever faced a giraffe misconception? That might be a good one for you.
Well, I think one of the most common misconception with giraffes is that they're not too bright, that they're dumb animals, and I mean. No, they're not. They can learn amazing behaviors, but it does take time. You got to be patient with them, and it's kind of consistency and work with them. And they are smart. They can learn behaviors. We do training at zoos, not so much for like tricks and stuff, but for like to be able to draw blood or stand on the scale or do stuff to maintain their health. And some animals like an elephant, they're so smart they can pick up a behavior or something like that in a day, where a giraffe it might take a month or two to learn. But that's probably one of the most misconceptions I have of them, is that they're not bright. A lot of people think they're very sweet and docile, which they can be, but there's individually based. They can also just kick out at you, and cause some major damage. So you got to be careful around giraffes. They can be aggressive, or they can be sweet. I find it on an individual basis, and what kind of mood they're in.
I think what led to the kind of gentle giant theory with all this too was circling back to Jurassic Park is this idea that, the Brachiosaurus, the plant eating dinosaur, was so slow and majestic and didn't go after, the paleontologists that were there looking at it for the first time. And since then, all of the plant eating dinosaurs have been relatively peaceful in most of these movies. I feel like they're kind of gearing towards shifting that a little bit in some, but yeah, I mean, people think that giraffes and elephants will just, be your woodland creature friend and just, you can give them a hug and that's okay. But there are definitely videos you'll find on the internet of, people going to Thailand to go see elephants for fun, and then they get whacked by that trunk, and it'll definitely cause some bruises or more.
Oh yeah, we've all seen the videos from Yosemite of people walking right up to bison because they look like just big cuddly cows, and then getting trampled by them. So you gotta respect the animals, give them their space.
Yeah.
So how did you let's go back up and just talk about your path. How did you get into wanting to work with animals and education and where you are now?
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of did the very bread and butter animal kid path where, I was reading every book, watching every documentary. Steve Irwin was a huge inspiration of mine, which has kind of led to my social media name of Crikey It's Christian. But it also was just something that fed me to want to read, fed me to want to learn about our natural world around, all of us. And so it made me also kind of think deeper about, my life and things that surrounded me as I got older too. Everything's so interconnected. And so I knew that as a kid, I wanted to work with animals, but I wasn't sure how or when or how it would all work out. And so most kids, again, like I said, I've worked with kids. And so some of them, as they age, they go into their teens, maybe they find new interests that maybe animals aren't their thing anymore. But if you're really core at it, that never goes away. And I'm sure you can resonate with that too, Mike, and many of the other people who are interviewed on this podcast, is that passion just really doesn't leave for some of us. And for me, again, I wanted to work with wildlife. And so I knew that I wanted to be a keeper or some type of education ambassador, something along those lines. There was a little bit of time where I actually was going to pivot to be a teacher. I was going to teach health sciences, get a kinesiology degree. But ultimately, I was doing my college classes and I wasn't doing bad. I had fine grades, but there was this sinking feeling inside me that just kind of felt that this wasn't right. This wasn't the right path that I was meant to go on. And I then pivoted back to wanting to work with wildlife, which again, I got my keeper apprenticeship with the facility, and then kind of moved on to where I am now. So again, it's been a fun ride. I've met some amazing people along the way, and every keeper knows each other via osmosis. I think you mentioned earlier episode, at least like every keeper is at least one or two people removed until, oh, I know that person. So
yeah, that definitely comes in our advantage when we travel and want to visit another zoo. It's like, wait, do I know a keeper here, either from a conference or a workshop? But if you don't, a keeper who knows a keeper that can hopefully get me tickets, get me in, maybe a little behind the scenes. And, most of the time it works out.
Yeah. Always nice to get those behind the scenes tours.
So do you find a way with your interest in, animals and paleontology to combine, the two while you're at work? Or are they kind of like separate parts of your career, your life as you?
Yeah, I feel like there's some separation while also some convergence. I mean, when I worked with birds, they are dinosaurs. There's no mistake or any way to cross around it. That people think that dinosaurs and birds are separate things. People still have that idea. Maybe, unfortunately, going back to Jurassic Park, we're going to keep circling back to Jurassic Park, that they're almost two separate things, but dinosaurs are birds and birds are dinosaurs. The cassowary that you see in a nature documentary or the zoo is just as close to dinosaurs as the sparrow outside your window or the seagull that took your fries at lunch. They're all dinosaurs equally. And so that, I think, was a big source of inspiration for me. And then as far as the education side, I've done educational programs for youth. So when I did my programming, we would have some animal that we would talk about that be the central theme, like bears, for instance. But then the overarching lesson they would learn is how to be a responsible camper when they're outdoors. So whether they're on a hike or anywhere, not leaving your food out for animals to get, or just making sure that you are responsible if you ever saw a bear outside, give them their space. I did another one on crocodiles, and then their life lesson there was about clean water and how not to pollute and stuff like that. And so then you can talk about ancient life. What were, some ancient crocodilians like, or bears? I didn't always do it with them when that came by, but there's parallels for sure that you can come up with. When I work with reptiles now, I kind of think to myself, what were ancient lizards, snakes, and turtles like? It's just such a interesting experience. And I have friends that are paleontologists, and they're all amazing people. And so sometimes we do kind of circle back with ideas like, oh, maybe they behaved like this or did that. It's hard to say because we don't have them right in front of us, but it all can be related somehow in the tree. So
yeah, you kind of have to like speculate, but I think you can I think we get pretty close just going off of behavior of current animals, of how they behave and how they act. And I think you can kind of get an idea how, a T-Rex may behave just by looking at a cassowary or an emu.
Exactly.
Fantastic. You mentioned your Instagram handle, Crikey is Christian. I recommend everyone give you a follow from your Steve Irwin inspirations. Do you ever get a chance to meet Steve Irwin?
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to meet Steve, but he was such an inspiration for me. It'd be a cool opportunity if one day I get to meet Robert and the rest of the family, but I got to get to Australia. I have friends that are in Australia, and they, there's such amazing herps and reptiles and snakes over there that most people are fearful, but I think it's the peak destination for me. Like, people ask me, what's the top location you want to visit? Australia is at the top. Some friends have even joked that I was Australian in a past life, but that's a matter of opinion. But it's like the place I want to be. So
yeah, I've not gone either. I also have plenty of places to stay. I know people down there. It's just gotta book that flight ticket. But yeah, actually, I have a story about not meeting Steve Irwin. But you're talking about people you knew at the LA Zoo. Did you ever meet Mike D, our old curator?
No, I didn't.
Were you familiar with? He was a curator. He worked at the zoo for I think since the zoo moved from Griffith Park into where it's at now. He was a general curator when I started back in the early 2000s. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2017. But he was like someone I looked up to, like a mentor and a good friend of mine. And early in my career, I got to take care of a Sumatran rhino, which was one of the highlights of my career. And not doing it anymore. There's no more in the U.S. They all got moved back to Indonesia. They're part of a successful breeding program there now. They're one of the most endangered species of rhino on the planet. But anyway, I was talking to Mike D, like towards the end of his life, but he was telling a story about how Steve Irwin came to our zoo just to see the Sumatran rhino. He wanted to meet the Sumatran rhino. So he came in and brought him in, gave him gave him the tour. I guess Steve I guess he gave him like a zoo like sweatshirt, and he's really like one like fly under the radar, not make a big deal that he was there. No one knew he was there. He came in, he met the rhino. It was very cool, and that was his day. And he's telling me the story, and it's the first time I'm hearing this. I'm like, wait a minute, I was taking care of that rhino at this time. Where was I?
Yeah,
must have been on my day off.
Wow.
I missed the chance to meet Steve Irwin. I did not know about it until years later. He never told me until like it was way after the fact. I'm like, so that's the story I have of not meeting Steve Irwin.
Oh man, I would have been pretty bummed, but
it'll haunt me to this day.
Yeah.
So great. Well, do you have anything you want to promote or add before we sign off?
Yeah. So again, Craig's Christian on social media platforms. Instagram is the one I'm most vocal and kind of active on. And so again, talking about elements of zoology, paleontology, and more. Another thing that I'm working on is actually a collaborative book project. So it's an art book known as the Artemis Paleo Zoo. You can follow us at Project Paleo Zoo. Essentially circling once again to Jurassic Park. Imagine Jurassic Park, but with the standards of a AZA accredited facility or accredited zoo. I am the book's zoological consultant, and so from every step of the way to our artists, depicting what keepers and dinosaurs interact and how that all works, and even the color patterns and how everything looks was a part that I played a major role in. So I'm very proud of that. But we will hopefully have a release date coming up soon. It's an art book for more the 5th to high school level, but everyone's got a child inside them. So feel free to get involved and follow us, and maybe you can get it for yourself or for your your inner child at some point. So it'll be coming up soon.
Oh, that sounds exciting. I will post a link in the show notes. And were you implying that Jurassic Park was not an accredited facility?
They didn't really specify in the film, so I guess I can't say one way or another.
Well, there's another one coming out this summer. Maybe they'll make note of that. I guess I don't know if they ran through their escape protocols enough times, but
yeah,
learn the hard way. So thanks for coming on. It's great talking to you, and hopefully you get to see you face to face sometime soon.
Yeah, I'd love that, Mike. Let's do it.
All right, take care.
Hey, I want to give a big thanks to Christian Flores for coming on to the podcast. Look for him on social media. He is at Crikey. It's Christian. And I just want to say one thing as I was editing this episode. There is one mistake that I made that I would like to correct. I commented about visitors in Yosemite walking up to the bison, and I meant to say Yellowstone. I was actually just in Yosemite, so that's probably why I had Yosemite on my mind, which is a beautiful national park in California. However, there are no bison in Yosemite. I was thinking about Yellowstone, but I said the wrong thing. Most of you listening probably didn't even notice, but I heard it and it's bugging me. So now I have to correct it in the post outro here because I can't edit it in the actual interview. It's a whole thing and it's going to bug me unless I say something. So I am saying something right now. I do know where bison live. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, please follow Christian and follow Wild Tales on social media if you haven't already. It's at Wild Tales on Instagram. Sorry, at Wild Tales Pod on Instagram. That's Tales, Tails. And recommend the show to your friends and family if they're not listening. I hope you're enjoying as well. If you are, please subscribe, like, comment, give me a 5-star rating. It does help boost the podcast so other people can find it. And until next time, stay wild, my friends.